Nice. So we're going to be talking with friends. I'm really excited this time around. We have three beautiful people I know really well to talk about scaling creative. I think a lot of us struggle with this. When I started working in creative, you didn't have to make so much stuff all the time. And now we're here, like 2026, everybody knows how to scale creative. The problem is, like, we're not sure how to scale it well. So we wanted to talk a bit about that for the next half an hour. I want to give you a chance to introduce yourselves. Tell us like who you are, where you're based, and what is something exciting you're working on now.
Hi, I'm Jess Rosenberg. I'm based in Austin, Texas. I work at AirOps. We help brands get found in AI search. I am so excited about so many things, it's hard to pick one. I am what they called AI pilled. And so I am just deep in Claude Code, AirOps, all the MCPs, Figma MCP, Canva MCP. So I'm just having a ton of fun exploring all of the AI things it has to offer at the moment.
Great. I'm Emma Robinson. I look after growth marketing for B2B at Canva. And because we're a growth marketing team, there's a lot of ownership around how to redistribute AI within our platform and be able to make sure our workflows are keeping pace. So I've been doing a lot of moving agents from more productivity and efficiency use cases into more revenue growth use cases and customer growth. So that's really like setting up more of a system around AI. So like starting with the data and contextual layers and all of those things. So it's sort of going back to like a lot of sort of systems thinking roots, which is very different. But I'm very excited about it. It's giving me a lot of energy. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm Martin Hofflin. I'm currently global marketing manager for Chupa Chups, yes, the lollipop brand. Currently, my role is how do I make this brand sexy and interesting for the current generation. So the people that grow up and are no longer eating a lollipop feels like eating one again. And of course, in that work, we are really trying to be in frontier of culture and creating ideas that are bold and unexpected and different, so they can win by earned media. And on that sense, of course, leveraging AI to spare ideas, to exchange, understand where we can be, and understand consumers, what they're looking for, and particularly social listening and what are the insights and how people are relating with the brand today. It's something that we're looking into and leveraging more and more as we go forward. Yes.
Yeah. I find it funny you said you identify as AI pilled, and I always feel like I am like that as well. But I know that all of us try a lot of things, and a lot of things you can do, but a lot of things are not still possible with AI. Like, what are some things you guys do that you feel AI is good for versus like, no, this is actually not something we cannot touch? Like, I don't know, Martin, do you want to start?
Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, I use it a lot on a personal level, but also at the company level, let's say. I think overall it is great, and it's really increasing the speed how we can think about ideas and how we can test with a small, let's say, synthetic focus group, for instance, or how we can bring to life an idea to materialize in an image to help you talk to people about it very quickly. So I think those are really ideas and things that you can move much faster than what you could do before. But it's not replacing judgment, right? The judgment is still with us, but it's increasing the number of decisions that we need to do on a daily basis because of the speed that we're able to push forward new ideas. So in a way, it's really helping in that sense, but it's also bringing a new sets of challenges. That is, of course, what we're here to talk about a little bit more.
Sorry.
I'll plus one that the mistakes that I've seen so far are people mistaking outsourcing their own intelligence or critical thinking to AI. When that happens, what I've seen is just slop across the board or mistakes, and then people start blaming the AI instead of holding themselves accountable. But intelligence, expertise, experience, craft, that comes first, and the context comes second, and then you involve AI. And so that's at least where I've seen the mishaps happen when you outsource your own thinking to the machines.
Yeah, I'd plus one to all of the things you've said. I'd also say, like, connected it to business strategy. You know, as much as you load, like, a lot of your, marketing briefs and templates and campaign material and stuff that's worked and not worked, it still struggles at times to connect the dots between sort of the strategy and then the production part. And so for us, a lot of it is still about the creativity is such a must-have in this process. So taste, judgment, as you mentioned. And now we're competing with the sound of the truck behind me.
How rude. Now we can continue. No, I wanted to ask you, Emma, but we talk a lot about this at Superside. We work with like 500 different brands, and they all come to us wanting to do AI. And I think no matter how much scale do you want to achieve, you really need to know what your brand is. Like, what's the core, what's the heartbeat of the brand, so that you can scale it. Without it, like, it's almost impossible. And you and I talked a bit about this. How do you guys think about it at Canva?
Yeah. So, I mean, we really feel it really relies on the brand system. Like, that's what's going to carry your brand values, your positioning, your relationship with your customers. Like, you need to codify that. Most people, I'm sure, here have, a PDF of sorts, or codified your brand into palettes and colors and fonts and all of the rest of it. And most people have a semblance of that, but that's really your heartbeat. And it's the thing that you need to continue to invest in. But you have to have a system of record for doing that. And it has to sort of be that living, breathing thing that's going to carry the AI. If that doesn't really exist, then the scale of AI is not going to be a fully complete program for you. And your workflows will not be as well defined and as well compounding in terms of the way that they actually work.
Yeah. No, definitely. I think both of our companies have like a partnership now because of this thinking as well. Like, we've been working a lot on our tool, the Brand Brain. You guys have been doing a lot of this, and I think it's essential for like. We always talk about this, joke about this. It's not anymore like performance versus brand. It's like brand and performance together all the time. I wonder, Jess, you were talking about this. Like, how do you keep like brand governance, but also leave space for creative disruption, creativity? How do you do that?
It's becoming a lot easier now with AI, I will say. I talk a lot and think a lot about the difference between brand governance and brand innovation. And just for context, I have 2 designers on my team. We're a really small team. I'm very hands-on myself. The first several months I went to AirOps, I needed a really quick way to set up a production system. And my team and I were learning Claude Code at the same time. So we used some of Canva. Ultimately, we wanted to like really develop a tight core for systemizing our production efforts, and so we vibe coded our own template platform that we handed off to our team. We built it in Claude Code, and now instead of our team requesting one-off assets, they actually request more templates to use. And so that's the governance part. It also exists within AirOps, where we scale content for to get found in AI search. We have something called Brand Kit as well, and so tightening the context for the machines to be able to scale your brand is the governance aspect. And then that then leaves room for the big, beautiful, creative human brains on your team to innovate, ideate, push the brand, flex the brand in the ways that I don't think can yet. So that's kind of how we've been approaching it a little bit.
Sorry, I'm talking about distinctiveness. If she's AI build, I think of you as brand build. How do you keep the Chupa Chups brand distinctive, like in this, mess of the AI slop?
Is it working? Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more with what the colleagues just said. And particularly for us, I mean, we're a brand that's been around for 70 years, right? We have been maintaining distinctiveness for a while now, but the universe around is changing fast. Particularly, Chupa Chups is now sold across 150 markets across the globe. And as we want to build further distinctiveness and encode memory and make sure that people see our brand in the ocean of content that they're seeing right now, and I'm drinking, of course, on the work we all know from How Brands Grow and Byron Sharp and all, how do you make sure that your system is tied enough that you have those things that can never change, but also leave some space for it to flex around the edges so you can also move fast, right? So for us, the challenge has been, of course, to identify how this brand has been expressed across these 150 markets, identify the commonalities that go beyond, let's say, the simple logo of it, but what are the colors, what are the fonts, what are the imagery, what is the brand tone of voice. So we spent quite some time trying to, put that into perspective, and now it's about hammering this consistently across the globe, making sure that the 2, 3, 5 things that needs to be there every time are there consistently being used. And in that sense, AI has been extremely important because, of course, we want to be more and more a global brand that can create centrally strong insights and campaigns to leverage, let's say, speed and cost efficiency. But we also want to leave space for markets to react also to their local trends and things that are happening there without diluting the brand. So when you you get your design system and you input that into your brain, and then you make sure that your markets have the chance to really scale that creativity but staying true to the core and to your distinctive assets, that's beautiful. So I think it's really leaving space for us to think more on strategy and less on crunching, let's say, design.
I think you do a great job at also kind of combining your brand with culture and with like relevant brands. Like you work with fashion, you work with Stranger Things, and I think that kind of like space you move in is really interesting. Speaking of brands, like we talk about this a lot with David. You create a lot of. Well, we spend our careers creating brands from humans. Now we need to create brands from AI for AI. How do you guys think about that at AirOps? Like, how do you create a brand for AI?
Well, we think about it all day, every day. I think just adding to what Emma said earlier, the context is super important. So on our product, we have a brand kit where you can input your brand's voice and tone, what we call frontier knowledge, which is like the unique and proprietary information around your company. So customer stories, stats, research, all of the unique details that surround your company's brand and story. That way, when you're scaling content on the platform with AI, the outputs are not only on brand, but they are specific. And so a fun fact with how ChatGPT and Perplexity will cite information is that they prefer authoritative, specific, structured content versus like generic. And so our brand kit really helps you dial that in. So the outputs are specific, on brand, they scale consistently every single time. So that's one way from a product standpoint.
I found that really interesting, and also like knowing how and when the human is part of the brand versus not. Like, how do you guys think about that at Canva? Because I know you obviously have a lot of really fun campaigns you do with completely out of the box thinking, or like Gemma Collins being the creative director at Canva. How do you guys decide like where do you do that crazy thing and where do you have to be more effective and systematic?
It's a great question. And I think, there's a very intentional decision to still have creativity at the core. Like, we know we have AI, we have access to these tools, but the reality is we all here in Cannes, we're celebrating creativity. We're, the experiential teams, shout out the experiential teams for the beaches. I mean, they are crushing it with these amazing human connection moments. The tote bags, I know there's a few of Canva tote bags here. There's just so much goodness about the things we touch and feel and experience in the world. And none of that can go away. So we very much intentionally believe that there's a human direction piece, but there's a production piece of creative. So you want to bring those ideas to life in a systematic way. So using Canva, of course, people can be able to, create these ideas and then bring them to life within multiple assets, formats, and all of that good stuff. But it is a really important part. We have a lot of human in the loop in our AI agent building to make sure that, what's going to market, if it's low risk, then it can go to market without necessarily too much of an AI human overview. But if it is a big outdoor brand campaign, for example, it's all human first. I think for those of you who have ever experienced working with agencies, those ideas, the things the creative directors come up with, I mean, you cannot replace such incredible feeling of when you see a really good idea.
Yeah.
So that will never go away, in my opinion.
I mean, I'm still thinking on that really cool London out of home campaign where I had like the logo that was too big for. That was a really good example of like experiential plus.
Totally. And I mean, I don't know if you guys were coming through Nice Airport, but there we had a campaign with squirrels, for example. So it's a lot of, for us, it's about, our brand values has been unapologetically Canva. And even in a B2B environment, we take so many lessons from the consumer world because we are humans at the end of the day. We respond to like really fun storytelling and it's memorable and it brings talkability and all the good things that we want to land as a brand. So we're going to keep doing that.
Speaking of really cool campaigns, Martin, I wanted to ask you, you have a shortlisted campaign now at the Palais. We're waiting for the win. Can you tell us more about like how did it come together? Like how did you decide to go that route? Or maybe tell the people who don't know.
Yeah, no, of course. And again, as I was just saying before, we are sort of a legacy brand, right? A heritage brand that kids, most of us have consumed in our lives when we were kids. But how do we remain relevant now as the kids grow old, right? And how do we increase our penetration with the young age cohorts? And in the world we're living in right now, where attention is getting so fragmented and scarce, then we have codified and understood as many other brands that the only way to do it is by tapping into culture in a structured way. So we have codified and created sort of a framework where we tap into culture, looking at the different dimensions that it can have. So we call it, let's say, a cultural drop when you do a collaboration with someone, or you tap into a cultural moment when you launch something when the eyeballs are already there, or you tap into a cultural human insight, or how people are already relating and talking about your brand, for instance. Or the last one of it is how you create something that will create a stopping power by riding culture when it's taking place. So for instance, this last one that we are shortlisted right now, it's called the Impossible Chupa Chups Lollipop. So I invite you to look for the case. But what's the story behind it? Has everyone here ever tried to open a Chupa Chups Lollipop before? How's that experience? It's terrible. It's a struggle, right? We always knew about it. It's horrible. But we were trying hard to solve that problem. And after 10 years, we did solve it. But we could have gone forward and just say, hey, now it's easy to open. Boring, right? Who cares about it? But we wanted that message to really travel. So what we did, working with our partners from the BBH London, we included that new easier to open lollipop inside an impossible to open lollipop. So we partnered with these guys on aerospatial technology, and we created a lollipop that has 7 layers of aramid fibers and all that shit. So, and then we send it across the world, and we invite the creators to try to crack into it and share their experience. And just saying, hey, inside is the new easier to open wrapper. So of course, this campaign has traveled way beyond if we would have just talked about the problem or that we now had a solution, because that's not sexy enough. But also when brands lean into their flaws, they suddenly humanize themselves. And people want to relate to brands as if they were humans, particularly now in the days we're living in. So it's been a strong success. We're super happy about it. It was the first time we got shortlisted. We'd already got 4. I'm not sure if we're going to convert, but we're already proud to be here sitting next to other massive campaigns. We're a challenger brand. We're a big one, but we're small as part of the category. So that's what we're going to continue to be doing moving forward to make sure our brand appears more in culture.
I love that. And I think it's the thinking we all want to apply. Like, I know for us, we're like B2B, our audience is marketers. And whenever we really make fun of ourselves and people can see like themselves in us, that's when we really get people to talk about us. And I wonder, let's talk about something less sexy, which is like measurement and tracking. How do you, how do you know when the things you come up with are working? How do you guys measure brand, or how do you measure performance?
I will say it was a black box for me for many years. Most recently at AirOps, I work really closely with our growth team. And the campaigns that we come up with, especially the brand campaigns, are tightly strategized and intertwined with growth goals. And so we ran our first brand campaign earlier in the year, and it was an out-of-home campaign. We had never done out-of-home. And out-of-home is notoriously very difficult to measure. And so my partner on the growth team was like, what if we featured our customers in the out-of-home? The play would be to extend the campaign digitally. We have all of our champions pose in front of all of the bus shelters in San Francisco. We have them post on social. We put promoted spend behind those posts. And that's what we did, and the campaign worked really well. It was actually the first time I was able to measure out-of-home effectiveness successfully, in one way or another. And then as part of that campaign, we did like a fun interactive, like, find your marketing archetype quiz, and highly measured that with like gated form and shareability and virality online. But all in all, we were able to contribute over 3 million in pipe from the entire out-of-home brand campaign and the quiz, which for a small B2B startup is a great return on brand spend. So that, yeah, it was successful in that way.
And I remember seeing them in person. They're also beautiful. I have a follow-up question for you, actually. We were talking about this, like AI search nowadays almost feels like a way to measure brand for the first time. Like, do you also think about that at Arabs?
Definitely, yes. So within the platform, you can assess your brand across a variety of components, from how you're showing up in ChatGPT, where your citation gaps are. But you can also measure brand sentiment across every single AI engine, which is super interesting, as well as like Reddit and YouTube and LinkedIn Pulse. And so that's definitely a metric that we keep tabs on and follow for our own brand. And it's also just really cool to see for our customers how they're, as they're progressing on their journey with AirOps, they're able to measure their own brand success, especially within these new AI surfaces that are popping up.
I'm really happy about this because, like, as a brand person, I always struggle with every time we have to talk about like awareness. People are like, "That's too expensive. We cannot do it. It takes too long." And this is a pretty good solution. Emma, I wonder now when you're moving into more enterprise customers in Canva, like, how do you solve for volume? How do you guys think about creating volume that still maintains quality and like brand consistency?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, a lot of our customers, they go back to that same philosophy you talked about, sort of the idea of it Canva being your production engine. So, there is a distinct need for the idea to come to life first. And that's still the way that we've been working pre-AI and now post-AI or within AI. Yeah, we're still in it for a while at least. But yeah, so it's really about sort of scaling. And again, it goes back to kind of the brand system. Like that's the brand brain you mentioned. It's the way that, that allows people to be able to create high velocity assets and like variants. We sat with a customer this morning and they were doing translation of assets that across 60 countries. I mean, we do a very similar thing. So the tools are now allowing you that velocity, especially if it's things like performance marketing, social, like things of sort of scaled nature. It allows you to get stuff out the market faster so you can test what's working, which we really like, and a lot of our customers do that type of thing as well. But ultimately, it still goes back to, you got to protect your core brand identity, like something that you described that you bring in a can is probably something more that is very agency led. It's very sort of bespoke ideation. But I think the reality is with culture, with AI, with the volume of content, you've got to get stuff out to market pretty quickly, which is why you see a lot of creators here turning content around within minutes rather than days. So that's the way the future's going to be. And you really just have to find the right balance within the types of content you're putting out there and then the risk to that content. So brand campaigns human first, and then a lot of the production elements can scale beyond that.
Yeah, for sure. I think we're all seeing that like velocity and kind of being relatable is much more important than being completely consistent all the time. Martin, do you feel like all this AI investment is paying off yet, or do you still feel like we need to wait to see?
I think overall, let's say we are exploring as an organization, we are relentlessly trying to understand a bit more what's in it for us with AI, because of course we are a company and a brand that sells in the physical world. Yeah. Vast majority, right? E-commerce is not that relevant because we're in an impulse category, so I'd say 2-3% of our sales go online. The rest is majorly done on the real world. When people are going around. So for us, it's really important to leverage AI and make sure that our teams are understanding what's happening right there so they become more efficient at their work, so they can produce things that are more consistent but also having the right quality, but also being able to exchange ideas, prototype, and think about what future can look like without waiting months, because the reality is time is flying. Culture is happening, competition is not standing still. So if you're not going fast enough, you're being swollen, right? It's about building excess share of voice so you can have that mental availability and brand growth. So I think for us, I think the investment in terms of education is definitely paying off. And we're seeing more and more AI becoming something ingrained on every single thing that our teams does. But then in terms of, let's say, really using it to leverage and grow the business, I think it's still, for us, a way to go. So for instance, a particular area I'm extremely interested on is LLMs. What is the role of LLMs for us and how much Chupa Chups is showing up there and how we can be more relevant there. And some of the work that we're doing from the tracking we're doing is really paying off because, for instance, as we're growing in Reddit and people are talking more about our brand, we're naturally being indexed more and more on the LMMs. So that's a bit of our strategy as well, is to continue creating conversation and mentions. And the main KPI for us when we do a campaign right now, of course, reach, frequency, boring, but is people talking about us? Is people talking to their friends about us? So that's what we're really pursuing, strongly moving forward.
Agentic word of mouth. I love it.
I love it. That's great.
Coined it here. Yeah. So we have time for one last question. I want to do like a round robin. What is the one thing that people here could do to help them scale creative more consistently?
I would say look into exploring markdown files, get into Claude, create skills, codify your brand into a machine-readable system, which is essentially, you can start with a markdown file that defines your brand color palette, your fonts, your spacing, how you do data visualizations. feed that into Claude and see how it outputs for you. That's literally how I got started earlier in the year, and that was just my starting point. But I would say just if you do a Google search or ChatGPT search for a Claude skill or a Markdown file or brand in Markdown, or follow me on LinkedIn because I talk about this literally nonstop. That's a really great place to start, because from there you can then empower literally your whole company to at least make like on-brand one-pagers, on-brand decks, like the small assets that you don't really need to bother your creative team with, because they really at the end of the day weren't hired to make those assets. Like, they're too talented. So I would start there, and it's all about the skills, the AI skills and Markdown files.
Yeah, I mean, I think the brand system is the infrastructure, right? So, like, at least the way we've been able to scale internally is by only doing that, really codifying all the things that work in market, being able to make sure that the engines are learning that and there's reasoning happening. Because without that, you don't really get that compound effects. And we've learned that a little bit the hard way. And so I would definitely invest there. And then, of course, if you want to come and check out Canva, we're just down the beach. Come and get tote bags and ice cream, and we'll show you the brand system for real life and how you can productionize content. So yeah.
Very good. Yeah, as we discussed a bit on the course of the conversation today, let's say for me particularly, distinctiveness and consistency is key to grow a brand that has the scale that we have. We're literally selling roughly 100 million lollipops per day. It's a big number. But how do you continue growing that journey, let's say? It's about being true to where you are. And this week I have been lucky enough to have the chance to sit down with Byron Sharp, with someone I admire, for an hour conversation alongside with our CMO. And we were discussing many things about what is consistency at the end of the day. It's keeping your strategy solid over time, but it's also adapting to the environment. So it's not necessarily doing always the same thing, but it's about adjusting what you're doing to fit. But one thing that you said, the core needs to become and remain relentlessly the same. So if you don't know for your brands what are your 3 things that needs to be on every single asset, find out tomorrow and start using it as you go forward. Because one thing for sure, if you don't, let's say, really use them consistently, you're just spreading your brand across, and every effort you're doing is not building, but it's really diluting everything. So let's say, I would say, go there, identify what it is, make sure that you use technology and leverage it for just stop spending time on production and also cost, but spend your time on thinking what's the next big cool action you're going to do for your brand, and let technology and robots do what they do best, which is scaling. So that's what I would say.
Thank you so much. So it's been 30 minutes. We're done here. Jessica, Emma, and Martin, thank you so much for your time. It's very valuable, especially in Cannes. Instead of a Q&A, we have actually a roundtable that our GM Richard is going to be hosting downstairs. So please stick around and let's talk some more. You can ask our guests here some more questions. Thank you, everyone, for waking up early to do this.
Thank you.